Jim Stewart, I'm Rick Collins, and this is Off the Bench.
I think off the bat we need to talk NBA.
Absolutely. We're getting closer and closer to preseason. We're getting closer to, well, the regular season doesn't really matter, but that's one step closer to the playoffs.
If LeBron has anything to do with it, it doesn't matter. And that is a problem for the NBA. But that aside, there have been a lot of moves over the offseason, and I really start to wonder, did it make a difference? Is it going to make a drastic difference in the NBA standings? I don't think it's going to change too much on the West Coast, and I don't think it's going to change too much on the East Coast, and the middles don't matter.
No, we already saw the move last year with the Houston Rockets moving up in the rankings in the West. I think San Antonio is going to still be in the mix, but the Golden State Warriors are the story. They have been the story for a while outside of LeBron James. And this Golden State Warriors team, because of how young they are, they're really set to play this well for 10 years to come.
I think like you were saying, the real story is not their record. I think it's they have a player that has changed the game, and that is Curry. Steph Curry has changed the game. It has gone from a game where LeBron James, someone who is maybe a two-point shooter and a dunker as the top stars, to a player that barely gets in on the inside, who is a dribbler, a passer, but he mostly shoots three-pointers. What he has done, and it's been a bit of a transition the last 5 years, but what he has done is he has moved the game past the three-point line.
Yes.
And that have had massive ramifications for the league.
And not for the league, but for basketball in general. Now we're seeing these kids doing it at the high school and college level. Let's just cherry pick on the offensive side, shoot threes, not run back on defense.
And you have a hot night, game's over.
You don't just shoot at the three-point line. You shoot 4 or 5 feet behind the three-point line.
And what it has also done, it has created James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Steph Curry, and a few others, CP3, have created a new generation of basketball players, which is the point guard, shoots every shot, and only passes when they don't have a shot kind of player. And I don't think that's good. These new little youth leagues have now started to become places where they have one star athlete that the ball is fed to and the offense goes through, and everybody else just sits there and either rebounds and gives the ball back to them.
Hey, but the Warriors are making it work, and especially since they have Draymond Green with Kevin Durant and the assistance of Klay Thompson shooting.
Yeah.
Steph Curry makes that team go, but there are so many pieces to that puzzle that have made it work. And with the coaching from Steve Kerr, I think looking to the future, it's going to be hard to see them not be in the playoffs. And looking at the numbers that they gave them a 58% chance of winning the NBA championship again this year. That's phenomenal. If you look back, there's rarely a team that gets over a 50% chance.
And it's not like the Cavaliers have drastically improved their team either. The problem they had last year was defense.
Yeah.
They went all in on shooters. They went all in on three-point shooters, and it didn't work.
They tried to chase the Warriors.
They tried to out-Warrior the Warriors.
Yes, exactly.
They tried to go the game plan, and what happened was they didn't take into account that, the Warriors have shooters, but they're also an unselfish team. They're not an ISO team. They're a play team. They're an open flow team. Cavaliers are not. Cavaliers are an ISO team. LeBron gets the ball in his hands. He dribbles it until the clock is almost out, and then if he doesn't have a shot, he gives it up. If not, he takes a shot. And with Kyrie gone, maybe it gets a little bit better, but Isaiah Thomas is just like Kyrie.
Exactly.
Dribble, 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 three-point shot. Oh, I didn't make it. Here you go, LeBron. Dribble, 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 dribble. And then the rest of the players don't get any play.
And that's the one thing when the Mavericks won the NBA championship here in Dallas, is that they were able to make the team notion work to win a championship. And that had been fairly rare in the past. I mean, you looked at teams that have won NBA championships, it was almost always a superstar or a couple of superstars that made it work to win an NBA championship. I think the Detroit Pistons, before the Mavericks, were the only other team in the last 20 years that really made this kind of teamwork team, capable of winning an NBA championship.
What they have done is they have proven that team play can trounce talent and iso ball. It really can. The Mavericks had
It
no
helps to have
bus-
the talent, though.
Oh yeah, but the Mavericks had no business winning the championship in 2011.
No.
They had no
They
business.
ran the gambit, and I mean, really one of the hardest playoff runs I've ever seen.
And the only All-Star on that team that year was Dirk Nowitzki. Yeah, they had a whole bunch of previous stars. They had Matrix, they had Jason Kidd, but the problem was they were all out of their prime. They were not the scorers they used to be, nor were they in the system that allowed
But they
them to be
knew
that.
what they needed to do to win an NBA
Oh yeah,
championship.
they knew that Jason Kidd had to lock down the defense, that he made the occasional three-point shot. Matrix knew the same thing. He needed to lock down the top scorer on whatever team they were facing. He needed to make his 3 or 4 or 5 shots a game, and then they just fed Dirk.
Yeah.
And what Dirk is, and for some reason it hasn't translated into free agents wanting to come here, he is a unselfish, he's not a glory hound superstar. He is someone that gets overlooked for everything because he is so generous and he doesn't demand attention.
It's rarity in the NBA. Now, speaking of the Mavericks, what should they do this year? Because last year, I think we were all on the same page. They needed to tank. It was not going to happen with the group of
They
guys
needed to
they
tank
had.
earlier than they did.
Because they needed one of these point guards in this last draft. They got one of those point guards. What do they do now?
They are ranked right now as the 10th worst team in the NBA. About where they were last year.
Basically the same.
I think what they do is they try to continue to develop their young talent. I think off the bat, if you can win, you can win. But if by the halfway point it's not going the way you need it to go, you need to revert back to getting more time for the young players. I don't mean tank. I'm totally against tanking. I think it is the worst thing. It's sort of like flopping in the NBA. It's like flopping in soccer. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, and in fact, they're actually looking at putting in some new rules for the draft to keep teams from tanking, because the NBA realizes it's not good.
To tank.
It doesn't represent the NBA well for teams to be tanking.
So what they need to do is that they need to play more of their younger talent if the game isn't going or the season isn't going the way they want it to go. They need to play Dennis Smith. They need to play Steph Curry.
Yeah.
They need to play Seth Curry. Sorry.
Seth Curry.
They need to play Barnes. They need to play the young talent that really is the future of this team. They need to give Dirk a little bit more of a rest, maybe go from 25 minutes to a game to 17.
Yes.
And they need to get him his points, because if we can postpone Dirk's career,
Yes.
even if he's an off-the-bench guy, if we can, he has the style of play. He doesn't rely on athletics.
Right.
He's all about technique, and he's 7 foot.
If at worst, if you're able to put a team together by drafting another top 10 talent this upcoming draft and bring Dirk off the bench on a nice young team that just needs some veteran leadership, I think that's a win-win for Dirk and the team.
Yeah, I think Dirk has probably 4 or 5 years left in him.
If they limit his minutes,
But as a 15-point-a-game and above player, he will always be able to all of a sudden go on fire and have a 20, 25-point game.
Yeah.
He always will. But if we can, as long as he's getting 10, 15 shots and he's going from 15 points and above on the scoreboard, I believe that it's a good thing to have Dirk Nowitzki here. He brings work ethic, he humbles players, and even as a locker room presence, I think it helps the team as a whole.
Yeah, now, looking at that draft, because I think we're both on the same page here, they need to get one of these picks in the draft. Even if we say we're not tanking, we certainly don't. I mean, they're saying they're going to be the 10th worst team in the NBA. We've got to expect that they're going to be somewhere around there. Now, it looks like, based on the talent that's coming out, the difference between 10 and 6 is pretty significant. I agree with you. I think near the end of the season, they go with the young talent. If they can get a top 6 pick, that'll be huge for them. Because there's some serious talent in this draft.
I don't agree with the way they did it last year. I understand they needed to tank. I understand that. For the sake of the franchise, they needed a point guard.
Right.
But I do not believe in the whole put the worst players on the
But
floor.
if you end up in 8th place, you're playing the Golden State Warriors.
No,
You're going to lose.
But play your young talent. And I don't mean by putting them out there and not running good plays. You still let Dirk out there. You still bring out the normal boys that come in. But you just don't play them heavy minutes.
Yeah.
You want to build that chemistry, continue to build that chemistry, because the way they did it last year, they took all the stars out. They took Dirk out, they
Right.
took Harrison Barnes out, and limited minutes for Barnes, but they took most of the talented players out. And what happened was they just said, go out there and do something.
Oh,
and what
yeah.
that
Some
does,
of the ends of those games were so ugly.
Yeah,
When you
so-
had guys that were just
that didn't help anybody.
jacking up threes.
Yeah, it did not help anybody. So what it is
It looked like a D-League game or G-League game as they're calling it now.
I sincerely believe that what you do is you continue to build the chemistry of the team. You can limit the players that need to be limited.
And hoping Harrison
Yes.
Barnes is the guy to build around. I
But
assume.
you build the team and you continue the chemistry. You don't just throw the worst out there.
I think the worst scenario is them getting into that 8th spot in the playoffs, not being in the lottery, and going 0-4 against Golden State.
My issue is that it doesn't matter what talent we bring in, because Mark Cuban tends to get rid of our talent as quickly as we bring it in.
That's true.
He got rid of Nicholas Brasino, who was, when we played regular season last year, he really shined. Oh, he did really well. He was a point
Well,
forward.
I did notice that Mark Cuban hates the guys you like because he got rid of them after this last season. We got to move on. We got baseball talk next, and then we're going to do another what we're calling like our speed round. So after this break.
They'll test you. Try to break your will. But however loud the loudness gets, however many cheese puffs may fly, you're the driver, the one in control. Stand firm. Just wait. And move only when you hear the click that says they're buckled in for the drive. Never give up till they buckle up.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made her college years happen. Wacha. Opening that education savings account when she was little. Spearheading a campus tour. And another, and another, and another, and another. Bam! Deciphering financial aid. She was like, what? But now she's like, you aced planning for college. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
Baseball, as we have discussed in the past couple episodes, has really changed over the last 20 years. And it hasn't been a change for the good, and it's not the game itself that has changed, it's the perception of the game that has changed.
It's not the Field of Dreams anymore, and even though, build it and they will come, that worked 20 years ago. It's not working anymore. They can build these stadiums as big as they want, but you know what the bigger stadiums mean? It just means more empty seats.
When we were growing up, being the last generation of of young people that really idolized baseball. When we grew up, it was cowboys, it was astronauts, it was baseball players, and it was firemen and policemen that we wanted to be. We played out in the yard all the time. Well, I'm Sammy Sosa. I'm Barry Bonds. I'm Mike Piazza. I'm Nolan Ryan. That's what we used to do. And football wasn't that. You didn't hear kids growing up going, I want to be a football player. I want to be Troy Aikman. You did have those, but what
And
kid
certainly
idolized.
you were fans, but when you went out in the yard, you didn't necessarily say you were
You
Troy Aikman.
pointed, you did the Babe
But in
Ruth, you did all that
baseball,
stuff.
yeah, it was all about that. You felt like you were a part of the game, and you don't see kids doing that anymore.
No.
It's just, maybe they are somewhere, but it's not near me. It's not where I used to grow up.
And so what has happened is the entertainment value out of baseball is starting to change. What people idolized baseball for in the past is not what they idolize about it in the future. And today, what is happening today is baseball is a slow, methodical game. It is.
It's unbelievably slow to the point of boredom often. How often do you spend an entire 3 hours watching a baseball game without switching to something else?
And 3 hours is a short baseball game.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
When we were kids, baseball was the game that you liked to play and didn't watch. Mm-hmm. It felt really quick when you were sitting there eating seeds and gum and pretending like you were out there on the diamond in a pro game. Today's world, young people's attention spans are so short, they can't handle a baseball game. What is it? The average age for a
Yes, if a
baseball,
baseball
fan
fan-
now is 55.
It's an old and aging generation that watched baseball, that grew up as baseball fans. You look at the average age of the NFL, my guess is
Early
in the
40s.
past, it's their early 40s to mid 40s. Basketball's even younger. You're talking like late 30s. So the fan bases for those sports are still in their primes. They're still in the active, I'm buying tickets to games, I'm buying the NFL Sunday ticket, I'm paying money to watch this programming, versus baseball where if these people don't have access to the games, they're just not watching it.
If you want to get an idea of what a baseball fan's mindset is, what kind of person is a baseball fan in today's world, it's the same people that are golf fans.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of game. It's a thought process, statistical. How am I going to hit this shot? I got to think a lot. It's a lot of thinking. Football's not a lot of thinking. Basketball's not a lot of thinking. There's not time to think, oh, that was a great run, next play. Baseball is how many strikes, how many balls does he have? What is his batting average? What is his slugging percentage? What's his on-base percentage? What's his pitching? What's his earned run average? There's so much stuff to think about.
They even say that sabermetrics, the whole, trying to calculate what the value of a player is and,
almost
what they mean
impossible.
to the team. It's almost impossible, but they do it so often that it takes away from the value of just playing the game. And what they're talking about is sabermetrics being used by the coaches, by management, in terms of bringing in players, in terms of playing players. What kind of plays do you
This was all
are you going
brought
to do
from
a bunt?
This was all brought from
No.
Bean and the Athletics. It's called Moneyball. They go in and they go, what needs do we have? What players do we need to bring in that have the attributes that fill the holes that we don't have? They don't have to be complete players. They don't have to be, all-around juggernauts. They don't need to be all-stars.
One thing I've noticed also is that we don't see the commercials with Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa and Greg
Bo
Maddux
Jackson.
and Tom Glavine and Bo Jackson. We don't see those commercials anymore for baseball. You see basketball commercials. You see football commercials. You see other sports all the time.
Well,
on
baseball,
TV.
it's more like a shave, or it has nothing to do with the sport itself.
Right. I mean, I remember growing up seeing the chicks dig the long ball. Where are those commercials? Because right now, the long ball is the only thing that's keeping the sport together. In fact, this year, they hit more home runs as a league than any other year in the history of MLB. There's less people watching the game. So I don't understand. Like, I remember when we were young, watching McGwire, watching Sosa,
Oh, you
watching
watched every
Bonds,
game because you didn't know if a history was going to be made.
and they were going to hit some 490-foot, 500-foot home run.
And
We're
they were-
still getting that, but nobody's watching. Nobody cares.
But you know what it is? It's also the bigger, badder players are the ones that people gravitate towards. Who is the number one attraction in baseball right now? Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
Why? He's 6'7", 270, and he hits the ball a mile.
And he plays for the Yankees,
And he
which
plays
helps.
for the Yankees, yes. But he's huge, he's strong, he's big, he hits the ball a mile. He has a horrible strikeout average. I mean, he strikes out all the time.
Yeah.
He's not a great defensive infield player. He's a hitter. That's all he is. And that's what attracted us in the 90s to the Barrys, to the Sammy Sosas, to the Mark McGwires. They're bursting out of their uniform. They look like they're bodybuilders who are hitting the ball a country mile. And that's what you went to watch.
So are we, I mean, you sound like you want us to have steroids in baseball.
I don't know if it's steroids, and I guess it comes down to this. Which is more important to the game now? In the past, they played to play. It wasn't all about TV. It wasn't
Dude,
all
they were
about radio.
smoking cigarettes in the dugout. They were drinking. They were dipping. There's no way that players would get caught doing half of that stuff nowadays.
Well, because now it's all about the TV product. That's what we talked about earlier with football. It's all about the TV
Yeah.
product. So if it's all about the TV product and not about what's on the field, then you want to go with letting performance-enhancing drugs be free in that industry, because that's when the number one baseball, when it came to ratings, was during the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa, Barry Bonds. Those guys were all on roids. All
Yeah.
of them. Now, the question becomes, that throws the whole tradition of baseball out the window. That's the asterisk, that's all this stuff where they go, it's not fair to the players that weren't doing it. Well, let's be honest. For the last 30, 40 years, they've all been on it. They've all been
They've
on
been
it.
on something.
They've been on something. Whether they're, whether it's cheating, or it's this, or it's betting, or throwing games, or it's drugs, or something. There's always something that makes it so that the game isn't pure.
Yeah.
The last time, and even I bet when Babe Ruth was playing, it wasn't pure. There was something going on.
Well, I'm pretty sure
always.
back then it was the mob.
It was the mob.
But I see what you're saying, and I get the idea of allowing the players to just, hey, willy-nilly do whatever you want.
Your action figures now. Your action
We're
starts. It's a
trying to
movie.
provide a product, but then you also have, well, now we're promoting our kids to go ahead and do steroids and everything else. So, I mean, are we going to treat it like alcohol? Once you're an adult, you can kind of do whatever you want as long as it's within.
So that's why I said I'm not
state
promoting
laws?
that stuff. What I'm saying is you have to figure out what's important. If it's the game, purity of the game, if it's the fact that you want baseball to be a great sport, you want it so the kids want to be baseball players, that it's a home and wholesome family product, then don't do it. But your game will slowly die. Because unfortunately in today's world, there's no way. You said if they were trying to figure out all these new ways of speeding up the game.
Yeah.
And what did you say? They did all of it within a 3-hour game and only sped it up 10 minutes.
Yeah.
There's nothing they could do. There is nothing. They have got to make the product more exciting for today's world. In the past, it worked because people were patient. They went out to spend 3 or 4 hours to get away from the world.
Right.
There was no TV. There were no, there were movies, but there wasn't as big a deal. They went to get away from it all. I can get away from it all with this.
Yeah.
I can watch old games. I can binge. I can Netflix. I can Hulu. I can do whatever I want to do. This is my escape. It's not going to a stadium and watching 4 hours of baseball. And you and I have had this conversation.
No, there's no escape. You feel like, especially in Texas.
You feel trapped.
You feel trapped, and it feels like a hot box.
And you and I have had this conversation. The only people that enjoy baseball games now are either statistical freaks or people who have a lot of money who can drink and eat and make it into a big event.
Right.
You
It's a
either can-
social
Yeah.
event. You're sitting in a box somewhere with air conditioning.
Or you're with a group of friends and you're
Right.
you're
Yes.
drinking sodas, you're eating.
It's not about the game anymore.
It's not about the game. And if there's a home run, you go, oh, well, that was really cool. But outside of that,
No.
it's not about the game. And it's the same for football and it's the same for basketball. The problem that baseball has is it's not as fast as the other two. That's
Yes.
why the younger people get basketball. There's something happening every
All the
second
time, yes.
of the game.
Yeah.
Then you go down to football, and the age goes up to 40 in the
Yeah.
early 40s because it happens every 30 seconds or every minute.
Right.
And then there's breaks. Then you get to the people who are maybe that had less entertainment when they were kids, so they understand the patience of watching something beautiful
Needed
happen.
for it, yeah.
Yes. And so then you get to the 55 and older that are willing to sit down and watch a 4-hour game and enjoy it. Same with golf. They sit there, and golf is a 4 to 5 hour event. You go and play golf, it's 4 to 5 hours.
I can't do golf. That is just, I'm sorry, I'm not going to watch golf. I'll go play it occasionally because at least I'm getting some steps on my counter. That's about it, though. I am off of golf. With bad knees, it didn't happen.
But when we get back, we're going to go over our hot takes or our quick sections.
Yes.
But when we get back, we'll be going over that stuff and ending the show after that.
Marie, you have prediabetes.
Prediabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms.
U.S. women's soccer beat New Zealand 5-0 the other day. Doesn't matter.
I think it matters. If you are into soccer, I think it matters because the men's national team is unwatchable soccer right now. Unwatchable. If you want to watch a soccer team that is what represents the United States and what we all think of it as, it's a women's national team. They've got a winning percentage over 90%. They've won the last 2 or 3 actually, they've won most of the awards over the last decade, whether it's World Cups or Olympics. That is the team to watch if you're going to watch soccer.
Here's my thing, is international friendlies, they're fun to watch, but often you just kind of have to take it with a grain of salt because just like any other sport like preseason, you're trying to see how some of these players fit together. Maybe you're throwing in some new players. Do these matches really matter in the long run? Because you've got 4 years between World Cups.
Well, you really have 2 years between big events.
Okay.
So every 2 years, it's either an Olympics
or a World Cup.
or a World Cup. And I think that you're right. Some of these friendlies are not the most interesting events that have ever happened.
I mean, 5-0, and it's New Zealand. Do we really care about New Zealand soccer?
But we were smashing people like that in the Olympics and in the World Cup the last 2.
I just feel like if we got Japan, if we got France, we got England,
we
got Argentina, Brazil, those would be way more interesting matchups. They have names on those teams that you're going to want to watch for. Even at the women's level, watching them play against New Zealand, I mean, that's like, I don't want to say a peewee soccer team. That's like a professional team playing against a JV team in high school.
Let's be honest, if we're talking women's national team, the 3 games, I don't care if it's a friendly or not, the 3 games I watch is U.S.-Colombia, U.S.-Brazil, or U.S.-Mexico, because there is a very good chance that there's a brawl that's going to happen in those games. It is amazing to me how angry some of those teams are when the U.S. comes into play, because they feel that they are a more football-centric nation or a more football-centric region than the U.S. And so when the U.S. comes in and beats the tar out of them, they get angry. I remember I think it was Colombia that one of the players punched Abby Wambach in the face when she was going after a ball. And it was epic. And I'm not condoning violence. The thing is, though, it makes it interesting. And in today's world, interesting is what drives ratings, it's what drives viewership, and unfortunately, that and domination. And the women's national team dominates everybody.
Okay, well, let's move to the men's side. Christian Pulisic, is he the savior for men's national team soccer?
I don't care who you bring on until you get rid of Bradley, until you get rid of Dempsey, until you get rid of Altidore and some of these old guards.
The old generation.
Yes, that don't know how to play team ball, that turn the ball over all the time, and that basically pull Zeke Elliott's all the time where they give up on plays. I'm not going to watch that.
So instead of savior, I'm going to call him the resurgence of the new generation. And I think that's where we need to start with him, is not to think that he's going to go out and he's going to get us into the quarterfinals or the semifinals of the World Cup. He's going to be the guy who's going to lead younger players to go overseas, to become better, and then we end up with a new generation of players that are better than that old generation.
Until the old guard is gone, because those are the ones that demand everything. Until those guys are gone, I don't care who's coming in. Unless everyone except those 3 and the other old guard that are there are replaced, those 3 are going to dominate the story, and those three are going to destroy the team.
Okay, NBA 2018 draft. Will we see the first time in a long time of the #1 pick in the draft being a European player?
I believe there is a chance. I believe it's going to be a point guard. But we always seem to get worked up over March Madness. You know, some of these players, Fultz, and some of these other players who are now seeming to not be the stars that we thought they were going to be in the Summer League and in looking at preseason coming up, we just have to be careful because we get worked up in one direction or the other. I think that he should be the
Luka
#1.
Doncic, yeah.
Should be the #1 pick. He plays professional ball now.
Yeah.
In Europe, and Europe is a good league. These college guys that come in, they've only been playing for 6 months, and then they're out. They don't even go to college for a full year.
Yeah.
They go in, they play, they get, if they are on a team that's horrible and they get to shoot all the time, that's great. If they're on a team that's surrounded by stars, they look even better. And then when they get on the teams that you have now, who was the last player that you and I talked about the other day that made an impact at point guard?
Yeah, we were looking
Kyrie
back.
Irving.
Kyrie Irving,
And he's a top
absolutely.
5 player in the NBA right now. So what I'm saying is we've got to be careful. We jump the shark a lot. We sit there and we get on the hype train of all these young stars that come out of college. And it doesn't help that we have a youth league that promotes that.
Yeah. Rangers playoff chances. Is it slim or is it none?
Next. I really don't care. At
Agreed.
this point, I don't care. We shouldn't even be in the conversation anyway. We've given up all of our good players, or they're hurt. There's nothing to do. I just hope they just need to. I think they need to have Joey Gallo as the number 4 batter and then the relief batter, all in the same lineup. I don't care if he's on second base. It's time for relief. Get another runner out there. Let's try to get him to beat Aaron Judge. Let's see if he can get a home run record for the Rangers. That's
He's
all
pretty
I care
close.
about.
I mean,
Yeah.
38 home runs. He'll get to 40 more than likely. And
But he has to get to 50 to beat Alex Rodriguez. He has to get to 50.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen this year, but maybe next year when he's hitting 220.
But see, in baseball, I don't care about tanking. I don't care about tanking in baseball because there's no real incentive.
The draft is not nearly as important as it is.
I mean,
in the
unless
NBA.
you're getting a Trout or a Strasburg or some of these large batting stars that are coming out of the minors or coming out of college. If you don't find that once in a draft player, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Okay. Do you hit for the knees or do you hit for the head? Because
Rather hit for the head.
yesterday, Terrell Pryor posted with attaching the St. Louis Rams safety that he would rather him hit him high than go for the knees. And everything we're seeing right now is because of the new concussion rules protocol to not hit above the shoulders, that guys are going lower and lower and lower. And we see many injuries where a defensive back
There's been more ACL
dives right
tears.
through a knee.
So you know my take on this. With 8 knee injuries myself, I'm not a fan of that. You know that it'd be hard for me not to retaliate for someone who hit me even low clean. Because I think that is a game changer. That is going out of your way to possibly hurt someone. I think that the thought process has to be mid-thigh to shoulders. That's where, and I'm sorry, Aaron, I know I keep hitting this, but it needs to be mid-thigh to shoulders because that's the target box. If you get lower than that, there's a chance you hit the knee and the chance you hit the ankle, and you can do major damage. If you go above, I'm sorry, but there's nothing you can do about it as a tackler if a defensive player ducks and you hit him.
And of course, we are always going to promote rugby-style tackling, and I don't want to get too much into that, but I think that's a piece that might save the game moving forward, at least in the injury column. Next, Magic Johnson's been getting mixed up with a bunch of stuff so far. Before the season even starts, he just got named as the president of operations for the LA Lakers. He's already been mixed up in Paul George free agency tampering before free agency started, and now he's mixed up in a Draymond Green incident where he may have hit a woman. Is this kind of the new...
Magic might have hit a woman?
No. Draymond Green might have hit a woman, and Magic Johnson's being called into court. So are we going to see more of the Mark Cuban-style people involved in the NBA, not these owners and presidents that sit back, they're invisible? Are we going to see more of these visible...
If you want to be visible, be a coach,
of
be a
admin.
GM.
Yeah.
All right, if you want to be visible, coaches are most visible. I think GMs need to maybe be a little bit boisterous and stuff in the offseason. I don't want to hear the president's name. I don't want to hear the owner's name. I don't want to see them.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the issue. The issue is these guys these brands are becoming GMs, presidents, and they are feeling out of place. You know, Magic Johnson, his whole career was, I'm Magic Johnson. I make everything great. No matter where I go, it's Magic Johnson.
Well, he made magic out of the drugs he was taking to rid himself of HIV. I mean, I thought he was magic, and he still thinks he is, but apparently getting called into court, he has no magic over that.
He needs to be careful now. He's starting to wander into being someone who is potentially on TMZ every week. That is not good
Well,
press.
if LeBron heads out to LA this next year, then he will be on TMZ. There's no doubt. Because
I would rather him be on
There's
TMZ
gonna
talking
be
about
drama.
LeBron.
LeVar Ball,
Yeah,
LeBron.
I would rather
Well, I
him
mean,
be
that-
on
that team's
TMZ
gonna
to
be
talk
crazy.
about drama on the court that isn't him.
Yeah.
I'm talking about if he starts getting where he is the drama, that's not what I
Yeah.
want. That is what annoys the crap out of me about Mark Cuban. I don't want to see him. I don't want to hear him. Let him pay the checks and then watch the product on the court.
My feeling exactly. Tomorrow we're going to be talking a lot of football. There's 3 major stories that have come out. Eddie Lacy, his weight issues, and then also there was a death because of tackling in college football. So all that tomorrow. Thanks.